Hi, Matt Buddy from Complete Wealth here again with another quick update because the government came out yesterday with some more announcements, this time with a package they're referring to as JobKeeper. So we thought we'd get into this one pretty quickly because it has some implications for a number of people and around that. So again, I'm joined by Christopher Sutherland from CompleteX, our business consulting arm, because Christopher deals a bit more with the employers. This is probably a bit more in your domain, but this is probably something that's going to be relevant for more people than might initially think. So a lot of our clients aren't necessarily going to be directly affected by this, but some of their children, friends, colleagues, even grandchildren in some cases might be. So let's get into it. So the government's come out. We had the job seeker announcement a little while ago, and that was around people who have essentially lost work or had their work dramatically reduced, and government providing essentially some sort of safety net, almost kind of living wage sort of concept for people. JobKeeper, though, is focused on employers. So this is about trying to make sure that employers can keep people working as opposed to having to stand them down. Now, it does cover people who are still down. So basically the details are it's going to be $1,500 a fortnight, and it's going to be paid to people where employers apply for it, right? So if you're an employee that's been stood down, then your employer will apply potentially on your behalf, if you like, or even if you're still working, your employer is going to apply. So I guess the first point is, if you're an employee, then this isn't something that you need to take advantage of per se. It's something your employer is going to direct, and they're going to do that by going to the ATO site. And there's not a lot there yet. Just really register your interest, and we'll get back to you basically. But it's going to start from the end of the month, I think, is the timing of when they expect this to be. But it's going to be applicable from
the 1st of March.
1st of March, yeah. So we're already a month in, essentially. So, but yeah, we're not expecting payments, I think, until the end of April, pretty much, yeah, because it'll take more to get sorted. So, but really, this is the government paying the employer to help subsidise wages. And so let's start with people who have lost, had their hours cut back, and basically they're not working.
Okay.
So in this case, the employer in this situation says, "Hey, I've got Christopher who was working for me in my beauty salon or hairdresser, whatever it is, but I had to put him off because I can't open." In this case, the employer applies for that payment, and they receive that payment, and that payment is paid then on to the employee, essentially. Yes. So up to $1,500 a fortnight. Now, importantly, it doesn't matter what they were earning before they were stood down. Even if they're earning less than $1,500 a fortnight, they're going to get paid the full amount. Basically, the employer has to pass the full amount on, essentially. So that's for people who have stopped working, basically, because of this coronavirus sort of approach. Yep. If they're still working and they're earning less than the $1,500, the employer still will pay the full amount. So everyone essentially gets like a pay rise if you're earning less than that, up to that amount. Okay. But if you're earning more than that, you're still working and you're earning more than that, then you're not going to see an impact on this, right? So the employers are going to receive the money, and they're already paying you $2,000 a fortnight, say, for argument's sake. Then it's only costing now $500 a fortnight for you to be employed. So the important concept behind this one is this is about keeping people employed. Predominantly, that's the focus, as opposed to giving money to people that aren't already getting it. So, yes, it's going to do that for people who have stopped work. So it's in some respects going to replace the job seeker. So I think what the government have looked at this and said, rather than throw all these people who hopefully will go back to work as soon as this is all over, rather than throw them into the dole queue, into the normal sort of job seeker market or job seeker administration, let's bypass that. So I know you just told everyone to go and get into their MyGov account and apply. And that's still a good idea, right? Because this will take a bit of time, and you need to the whole thing needs to sort of work itself out. So at this stage, I'd still say to anyone, especially if you're not working at all, get in there, and if you haven't already, apply for your job seeker. But if your employer turns around and says, "Hey, no, I'm going to do this on your behalf," so now you're going to get paid the JobKeeper amount. First of all, it's more. So you're going to get more money.
Yep.
And we've done a bit of a calculation on that as well. So even if you consider the 2 lots of $750 payments and you incorporate that into the equation, the reality is you're going to get paid more. So so for the vast majority of people who aren't working at all, if their employer goes down this route, then they're going to be okay. Now, the requirement for the employer to be eligible, there's a turnover issue, but I think it's like $1 billion or something, so it's pretty big. So so the vast majority of small businesses, they're going to be okay, but it's 30%. So if your turnover is not affected, and it's kind of a month by month basis, right? So it's going to roll out over the next 6 months, but it's a month by month basis. So if you've had your turnover, or you expect your turnover to drop by 30% or more, then you can apply for this benefit to keep your employees, essentially. So obviously if you had to shut, your turnover's 100% different to this time last year, right? So in that case, you can apply and you can pass that money on to your employees and keep them sort of, on ice, if you like, rather than sort of in limbo, which means they're now not going to be eligible for job seeker. Because once you earn over 1,086, I think it is for a single, once you earn over an amount, you're not eligible for job seeker. So for the vast majority of people who are on job seeker because they've lost their job or they're being put on hold, this will replace that if it comes in for those people, right? So if your employer does notify you and says, yeah, hey, we're going to give you this now, then you'll need to go back into your MyGov and say, hey, now I'm getting JobKeeper. And so you'll lose your job seeker, but you will get a little bit more money, is the bottom line. So that's the first thing for people who have been sort of fully stood down. So hopefully that's reasonably clear, and there'll be a link to the fact sheet. People can check this out. But I would say if you're a job seeker, make sure if you haven't already, make sure you have got in registered with your MyGov so that you've locked in your start date, etc. But if you're a job keeper, then you're going to get back paid automatically from the 1st of March. So nothing to see here, nothing to do, just kind of wait and see.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, okay, so people who are continuing to work, they're not really going to notice any difference other than they might get a pay rise if they were earning less than it. It's going to be a relatively small portion of the population, I think, but certainly probably the biggest difference will be casuals, right? So this is for full-time people, for part-time people, and for long-term casuals, and the way they're sort of measuring that is more than 12 months. So if you were employed as a casual by your employer on the 1st of March 2019, you're potentially eligible for that, and your employer's going to take this 30% haircut. So if they shut up shop, no problem, but if they also think it's just going to be 30% drop in revenue, then you're going to be potentially eligible, and therefore they can apply. So if you were earning, I don't know, a couple hundred a fortnight, then you'll get a bump to 1,500.
Yep.
Now, because your employer has to pass that all on, right? So they'll get 1,500 and they'll just give it to you. So that's a bonus for those people, I suppose. For people who are still working, obviously, they'll get a pay rise, and people aren't working, obviously, you're going to get that full pay rise as well. Okay, so
talk to me about a couple of nuances. So the superannuation on that. On that amount.
That's a good point. So obviously, if you're not working and you're getting this payment, you're still not working. There's no superannuation guarantee liability, so they don't have to pay any super. The 1,500 is the total amount.
Yep.
If you're working and let's say you're getting paid 200 a fortnight, then your employer will still pay super on that. But any top-up payment, if you like, of the actual cash salary, gross cash salary I'm talking about, they don't have to pay super on that. Employers don't have to pay, and probably I would think most won't, because this is about minimising expenses. So they can choose to, but they don't have to. So if you're getting paid, say, 200 plus super, you'll now get 1,500 plus 9.5% on the 200.
Yep.
I expect that's how most employers would do it. And that's only going to be obligation, but they'll have to pay you that extra 1,300 because they're getting it. Okay.
Yep. All right, nice. And then talk to me about if you work multiple jobs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's only one bite of the cherry, right? So, there's this concept of use of like primary employer, right? So if it's not obvious, certainly if you're a casual, you need to go back to your employer and say, hey, by the way, if you don't know, you're my primary employer. So it does create a bit of an opportunity potentially for casuals as well. So if someone was working multiple jobs and one of those jobs can continue and therefore, or one of your employers can't access this payment because, maybe their business is booming as a result of this, for example, you're a courier driver or something, I don't know, doing Woolies home delivery, whatever. In that case, but you've also got another job that you qualify so that you're part-time or you were casual, long-term casual for, that employer, you might be able to make that your primary and still work your other job. Because the difference, I guess, with this versus the job seeker is a job seeker, they'll look at income that you're earning and adjust accordingly, at least your job seeker payment, not the corona supplement of $550, but the original job seeker amount, right? So with this, there's no other. If you've got another job and you're working 80 hours a week, you'll still get this from that primary employer. Does that make sense? But you can only obviously have one primary employer. Yep. So, and they need to apply. So they have to notify you that they are, but you'll probably, if there's any doubt, it's probably a good idea to notify them and say, hey, by the way, you are my primary employer, or I'd like to at least nominate you for that and make sure they're applying.
Yep. All right. So you've talked about what employees have to do in terms of, having a discussion with your employer. And then also you talked about the MyGov. Also talk to me about the visa status.
Oh, yeah, okay. So if there's any, you have to be a Australian citizen or on certain types of visas. Right. So again, probably not a huge impact for most of our clients. But yeah, it's only available to certain visa participants as well. One other thing actually I should mention in relation to the payment for people who are earning more. So if let's say you're earning $3,000 a fortnight, for example, you won't see anything because your employer is going to now get, assuming they're eligible, they'll get the $1,500. But if they're still employing you and you're still earning, that's going to essentially be a subsidy to help keep you on, right? So you won't get anything out of it in the sense of you won't see a hit to your paycheck like your colleague who was only earning $500 a fortnight will see, because you're already earning enough basically. So so it's not a case of everyone gets a pay rise. It's just some will benefit disproportionately, as always when you throw these sorts of measures out quickly. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as well. All right. What else do we have? So so if you're, I guess the important thing is if you're an employee, make sure you've still done your job seeker scenario. Certainly if you're not working or you're not earning at least $1,100 a fortnight, make sure you've already done that or do it straight away. You'll need to then notify them if you then become eligible for a JobKeeper payment.
Yeah, because you can't get both.
Because you can't get both. That's right. So, if you're a casual that wasn't that didn't have an employer at 1st of March 2019, then you're not going to be eligible for this. So you're definitely going to stay on the job seeker side of things.
Yeah. Right? So if you, in the example there, if you just started your casual employment 1st of January 2020.
Yep.
And you weren't with that same employer back in 2019.
Yes.
That person's not going to get
eligible for the JobKeeper. That's right. So again, it's probably going to be a little bit of negotiation in some cases as well, right? So maybe you're better off in some cases becoming a job seeker because your employer is not going to have the turnover drop or whatever for you to go on to that, especially if you're a casual potentially, right? So there'll be situations potentially where you say, look, rather than me working and earning $500 a fortnight or $1,200 a fortnight, for example, and then therefore not be eligible for a job seeker, I'll sacrifice my hours so you can pay someone else more, and I'll get that money anyway from a job seeker scenario. So there's an opportunity, I think, for employers to sort of have a bit of a conversation around how do we share the labour and share the benefits. Because again, I think the government, and I don't know this, but I think the government, one of the considerations that seems to be in play here is they've left a bit of malleability in it. So, and I think that's probably deliberate in the sense of saying, well, hey, look, you guys, you're all adults, work it out between you and try to work a way where you keep everyone going as best as possible. Go back to that idea of like momentum's much easier when the car's moving, even if it's only just creeping along, than if it stops.
Yeah.
If it stops, it's really hard to get going again. So if you've got to slow it down to barely moving, fine. You guys work out how the best way to do that. We're just going to give you that little bit of a push. And if that means some casuals or some people need to go onto the job seeker because they can and they'd be eligible and so on and so on, and some others are better off as a job keeper, then there's going to be those conversations. But I guess also just be a little bit careful about inundating your employer with a million emails and can I have this and what about this? Have a look at the fact sheet. If you qualify for the job keeper, as long as your employer knows that they're the primary and they're going to likely be eligible, there's nothing for you to do.
Yeah.
Except notify you through your MyGov account if and when they've said we've now registered you. All right?
Very good.
Now, the ones we didn't talk about is sole traders or self-employed. So they're eligible as well, potentially. So again, make sure if you're in that situation where you're thinking, oh, my employees are getting something, but I might not, this is going to be better payment than be a job seeker. So sole traders or self-employed should be looking at this as well.
Yeah. Again, they're under the same category. Your revenue's dropped by 30%.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So, and look, yeah, absolutely. So, there's a lot of people who will be eligible for this from an employer perspective. So, if there's any doubt, get in there and apply would be my recommendation. So that's about it. So, we're trying to get this one really quickly because this is probably a bit of an intervention for those people who are in the job seeker sort of side of things as well. So, definitely keep that going, get that application and that notification going. It's much easier to turn it off later if it turns out you don't need it. And also just have that conversation with your employer, but probably give them a bit of time just to work out, who they are or, how they might fit into this. And then, but as always, if you've got any other questions, let us know. We're more than happy to look into it in a bit more detail or provide more detail to anyone else. But until next time, stay safe and thanks again for your support.